morning and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. Let's begin. From time immemorial, managing farming space and grazing sites has never been easy. This has been the brouhaha between farmers who are often indigent and the Bororo settlers who are the graziers. Most colonial La Republic authorities have seen the fight between farmers and graziers as a money-making venture. Such unscrupulous administrators exploit the graziers, as in most cases, have the means to buy justice for themselves. This justifies that such conflict will not end. While locals in Bororo attack and kill themselves daily, the colonial La Republic authorities somehow found a way of making fast cash from this. Meanwhile, kidnapping for ransom and torture from the hands of armed gangs are some of the ugly face of the ongoing war on the local population. A lot of people have usurped the name of Ambazonian fighters to cause atrocities with the sole objective to enrich themselves. At one point, it is difficult to distinguish who is indeed the authentic Ambazonian restoration forces and who is not. Even within the ranks of the real fighters, there are some bad grains. We'll look deeper into this in the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. But do not forget, we're still in the drafting season and Coupe Manenguba comes next. We'll have the prime headlines now.
All right, here are the prime headlines for today. Women protest high cost of living, which is caused by the Ambazonian War of Independence. Well, tonight would give you a report of a man butchered in an attempt to send away cows from his farm by the Mbororo headsman. The corpse of an unidentified man has been spotted at the PMI hospital in Mai for Unquain. The ugly side of the war in Ambazonia, the suffering the population is subjected to, is another story we'll be looking at tonight. And on the African scene, we'll be looking at the Niger coup, of course, on the Russia tactical team is on the foreign report. Coupe Monanguba comes up on Saturday. That's the draft. What do you know? How has the firepower been? Well, let's get into the full briefings of Undaunted.
Our vision in this interim government is to make ABC a leader and a real war horse of our struggle. We want to grow it, expand it, hire and train more hands, and broadcast round the clock, around the world, and take command of the media space of this world.
You can enjoy all round the clock, 24/7 exclusive moments of bliss as an ABC Amba TV Club member. A cappella. Latest Nigerian stroke African movies, global politics, ABC Amba News and updates, historical documentaries, and lots more. In our daily programs, we have Undaunted, ABC Amba News, bringing into the news untold stories with Onyi Okpala and Star Smart. Exclusive discussion, panel conversation, infotainment, edutainment, intro-governmental debates on topical issues with Tar Paddy King, State of the Liberation Movement, Fronting IG and People of Ambazonia's Position, the Struggles Weekly Update with Secretary Martin Mungwa, PhD, FASC. Health is wealth. Health education and awareness within the Ambazonian community with Dr. Yaya. Liberation prayer and intercessory ministry for Ambazonia with Pastor Victor Mba. Our freedom, spiritual awareness, and education for the Ambazonian community with Pastor Victor Mba and Pastor Commando. Church and politics, neutralizing the myths and preconceived religious and political philosophies that limit the Christian involvement in the realms of decent politics with Pastor Commando. The Horizon, the voice of the Ambazonian woman with Dr. Patience Abiedo and Lady Casey. Our Amber history, bringing to limelight the hidden history of Ambazonia to the world with Pastor Commando. Appointment on community building, education on patriotism within the Ambazonian communities with Ma Rachel Itatima. Ethics for an Emerging Nation, watchdog of basic principles and morals of a nation at war with Ma Dorothy Ngwa. Upcoming programs: Pigeon News, Vernacular Talk Show, County Roots, Activists Corner, Amba Focus, only on ABC Amba Television. We the people, the voice of the voiceless. For 24/7 access, subscribe as a club member on www.abcambatv.com/subscribe.
ABC Amber TV has just learned that hundreds of women and activists has marched in the colonial Republic to Cameroon capital Yaoundé on Monday, calling for an end to the senseless genocidal war declared on the loving southern Cameroonians by dictator Paul Biya. The women during their march called on the Yaoundé Crime Syndicate government to provide more help to reduce the high cost of living that has caused survival very difficult, and that has also caused the war, making life unbearable in southern Cameroon. Now, the march was in observance of Pan-African Women's Day and was staged at the neighborhood of Senga Quarters. And Aneba, one of the coordinators of Monday's march, said the women assembled at the courtyard afterwards demanded of an end to the genocidal war in the southern Cameroons. Ambazonia war that has claimed over 50,000 lives, burnt over 600 villages and homes, sent over 1 million people on involuntary exile, thousands in jail, and thousands missing. Well, this is a sad report already. Let's get into the full briefings once again. How are you doing, Star?
Very well, Onyi. Anaba Ann adds that women and children are the most affected by the genocidal war in the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia, and that poverty and hardship triggered by these armed conflicts and unprecedented spikes in commodity prices have negatively impacted families from building foundation stones for solid African societies. Women say besides the armed conflict, they are finding it extremely difficult to cope with the rising price of goods. And Anaba intimates that conflicts kill or displace men from communities, and women spend time running for safety instead of teaching children to love, live together in peace, and socially develop their communities. The march was also part of activities marking the annual observance of Pan African Women's Day. The holiday declared by the African Union is observed every July 31st.
And the question we are asking the women is, why wait for July 31st of every year to manifest when the people are massacred, genocidal La Republic declaring terrorist soldiers day and night, singing 7 years and counting? Had these women been bold enough to tackle the bull by the horns, marching every day, a massacre had been committed to Echudi, the Octonac. Probably he would have the pressure and consider defeat. Women and children are also deeply affected by food insecurity along all the borders. just like the Chad and other countries where an Islamic insurgency has left more than 36,000 people dead and, over 3 million displaced.
Well, women represent an essential agricultural workforce and undeniably contribute to the fight against hunger and poverty. Women contribute significantly to the stability of life in the countryside and reduce the scale of rural exodus. They take care of their children, are involved in domestic and agricultural works to ensure food and nutrition for families and communities. They are also known for their support of movements for democracy, human rights, and peace. So these demonstrations for the cameras wait only for international days when the innocent Ambazonians are killed on a daily basis in a strife that has been persistent for 7 long years and counting.
While from time immemorial, managing farming space and grazing sites has never been easy. This has been the buhaha between farmers who are often indigent and the Mbororo settlers who are the graziers. The genesis of such scuffle is when the herdsmen allow the cattle to feed on the crops of farmers. Faced with such frustration, some farmers launched attacks on the cattle. Most colonial Republic Cameroon authorities have seen the fight between farmers and graziers a money-making venture. Such unscrupulous administrators exploit the graziers, as in most cases have the means to buy justice for themselves. This justifies that such conflicts will never end. While locals and the burros attack and kill themselves daily, the colonial Republic Cameroon authorities are making fast cash.
Well, a man has died after sustaining machete wounds as he confronted a herdsman whose cows were feeding on his maize. Paradoxically, instead of the Mbororo herdsman pushing the cow off the land, he attacked on the farmer, cutting him in the head with the machete. Well, it's very sad, and wonders they say will not end. Why guide cows into someone's crop farm that they've worked so hard for in a rainy season with green pastures all over? Why?
Well, a man who undaunted got his name as Shamba Damo has died from wounds inflicted on him with a cutlass at Mwati village in our local government area. This incident happened on Sunday, July 30th, 2023, as Adamo is said to have been attacked on his farmland by Mbororo herdsmen.
Reports say Pa Chamba Adamu was on his farmland with his wife and children. The Mbororo headsman didn't know that the occupants of the farm were around, pushed his cow inside the farm to feed on their hard-worked maize. Furious with the act, the Pa Chamba confronted this herdsman who rather inflicted deadly wounds on him with a machete. Shamba Adamu was rushed to the integrated health center there thanks to the motorcycle of the village head. He unfortunately and sadly died in the hospital even afterwards. Reacting to the attack on the farmer by the Mbororo herdsman, the village said he has reported the incidents to the colonial divisional officer. He added that he does not want any Mbororo in his village anymore and that all the Mbororos should move out. Well, the wife has this to say.
Madam Chambang, where they don't cut a man who collapse for farm. Madam, if you explain for we what happened today between your mass and Amboro man for farm.
Yes. Me say we don't come out so we sit down. How we don't sit down so it did the show casnet. How we the show that casnet so where I no be there. I did only joke come back so I did sit down. I never sit down meaning. I sit down. I see picking the wrong camp. Picking to say papa call dey for myself. It jo enter go for her. It go the jack camp. Na so Mboro man don only jo mock collapse. What do you with that?
We go use small for fun for one T village. Do one of the fun for one T pa. What you get for talk about this will don't happen for your village today soon.
The thing I want for talk for this, I not want for take law in my hand. For put them. Dio, I don't go see Dio. I say I no want borrow for my land. Because borrow, they destroy him back. Today I be for Kindika. They don't go finish some 2 people their farm rights where they plant it right now. They don't go finish the farm rights and I be for them for morning time. I want come back. Can't you don't pass some rain don't fall more for this 5 o'clock. The woman they come with a picking, they call me for bush. Say me I come with my machine quick, say they don't cut chamber. They don't cut chamber or collapse for head. Now I'm man for a corner house, for a farm, where they don't cut the collapse. So I don't send machine for them. Machine go take carry, bring them. Lay for die for root. Wait for worker with a man, you know they. So I don't talk say, may government help me. I don't want any borrow for one land. I don't want me borrow me the come go.
All man fisiam na the wound this way they caught Mr. Adamu Chamba for your head and as wonderful corner your eye. This one has staffed them for Ntem Integrated Health Center, how they struggle for solve the situation. And they staff them this, they struggle with Mr. Adamu Chamba. But only pray say me God let me out in what I'm fine.
All right, very sad there. Moving on, of course, you've just seen. So it means that being alive in Ambazonia since the start of the war is just a miracle. Miracle in the sense that there is no guarantee that one, after leaving the house, will come back in one piece. A day will not go by without reports of people being killed. People cross on corpses now in Ambazonia and even in Bamenda, in particular, just going about their daily activities as if all is fine. Now, just because people both old and young are used to seeing corpses doesn't mean that it should be normal and accepted.
Well, a corpse of a still to be identified young man is at the PMI hospital in Queen. The reports hold that he was shot at about 11 p.m. local time by an unidentified gunman. Who shot him and why, we wonder. Undaunted has gotten news of a lifeless body at the PMI hospital pending identification and collection. The corpse was brought into the hospital by people of goodwill in an attempt to rescue him after he was shot.
Oh, the report holds that he was shot by unidentified gunmen at my fallen Queen last Sunday, July 30th at about 11 p.m. local time. Circumstances surrounding his shooting is still a secret, and no group has claimed responsibility for the assassination.
There are no identification papers for him to either get his name or where he comes from. The hospital has only sent out a call for people to check on their loved ones and check on the corpse in their keeping for identification. Targeted killings are rampant now in Bamenda amidst the ongoing war, as many are using the war to settle personal scores.
Still on a sad note, kidnapping for ransom and torture from the hands of armed gangs are some of the ugly face of the ongoing war on the local population. A lot of people have usurped the name of Amazonian fighters atrocities with the sole objective to enrich themselves. At one point, was difficult to distinguish who is indeed the authentic Ambazonian Restoration Force or not. Even within the ranks of the real fighters, there are still some very bad grains.
Well, the local population in Bui are on the Ambazonian stakeholders to check the excesses of self-styled General Shiyntum. He is subjecting the population on wanton kidnapping for ransom and torture. We wonder, is he really fighting for the independence of Ambazonia? And who is he answerable to? Kumbo self-styled General Shiyntum Augustine, an Amba commander in Kumbo, purportedly Buyi County of the Savannah Zone of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, has been accused of torturing the civilian population after taking a long break from kidnapping, receiving ransoms, and beating up more than 60 victims of Kumbo Center. This General Shiyntum Augustine is back with his harsh treatment of the population.
Well, in less than a week, he ordered his boys to molest 5 civilians in Kumbo. The alarming case is the abduction of an old woman who sells corn, popularly called Mami Ward 1. She was accused of having the phone contact of Mayor Sindez Evans of Kumbo. The old woman was taken to Shiyntum's camp and severely beaten under her feet. There is another case of a bar owner called Manju Gerald, whom Shiyntum's boys got severely beaten, seized money and his phone. The population of Kumbo is on their knees begging for the powers that be to call Shiyntum and its terrorizing boys to order.
Moving on, the Colonial Divisional Officer for Ekondo Titi, the Colonial Mayor of Ekondo Titi, the ruling CPDM Party Section President for Ekondo Titi, the Colonial Gendarmerie Brigade Ekondo Titi, and three other Colonial La Republique du Cameroon agents who were put down by Field Marshal Ten Kobo and his valiant ARF at Ekondo Titi last year, March, were lowered to earth same March 2022 to meet at a colonial ceremony presided over by Ibune Compliance Director of Cabinet to Colonial Prime Minister John Ngute. We're bringing this throwback in regards to the fact that these same warriors from the Kupe Manenguba County are the ARFs showing their firepower. And this is a good time to bring this flashback due to the fact that on Saturday, we're having another intensive, interesting draft for the Kupe Monenguba County.
Now, still emphasizing on the firepower of Kupe Monanguba, following that deadly ARF's offensive at Ikondo Titi, which was led by FM Tenkobo that sent the Colonial DO Mayor, Commander, the CPDM section president, and three others sent them away. Indian County has been restive, with denizens fleeing into the Kang because the colonial La Republic du Cameroon military kept raiding villages, arresting civilians, especially young men. Well, the monitors of the conflict in the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia said that atrocities and other abuses has been carried out by the security forces and the separatists alike. Well, way back in November 2021, four students and a teacher were killed in a Titi when a secondary school was attacked by the colonial military. Two colonial military men were equally killed by La Republique du Cameroon. They were equally killed by Ambazonia Restoration Forces. Now, this shows the firepower, how it has been strong in a Titi, that is in Kupe Monanguba as well.
County. Okay, Cameroon has been turned by the conflict since October 2017 when militants declared an independent state in the majority French-speaking country, and the colonial authorities in Yaoundé responded with a crackdown. In a spiral of began with he claimed more than 50,000 lives and counting and forced a million to flee their homes, according to the International Crisis Group think tank. In 1961, the Southern Cameroons joined La République du Cameroon after the latter gained its independence from France. For over 60 years, resentment brewed amongst the two regions over perceived discrimination, marginalization, subjugation, annihilation, annexation, assimilation, which lasted for over 60 years and has been trying to mix water with fire, which does not work.
Well, now the importance of this draft can't be overemphasized. The area is rich. We have areas like Indian, where there is oil, and neighboring La Republic to Cameroon is taking advantage of this particular area. The sad point is that that area, the Indian area that is rich in oil, is poorly developed. KMC as a county has lots of potentials, touristic and historical figures. As we prepare for the draft this weekend, we'll keep you up to speed with all of the useful information that will help you to vote properly. But remember, the lives of the mothers, the children, are in your hands only if you can draft properly.
The Never Again generation under Dr. Sacco is bent at total independence, come rain, come shine, to liberate homeland through war drafts that are already paying off by putting Field La Republique on its knees. Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia want an end to the 7-year-long armed conflict that has claimed over 50,000 innocent Ambazonian lives, burnt over 600 of their villages and homes, sent over a million people on involuntary exile, thousands in jails, and thousands missing, looting, raping, maiming of their peace-loving people. The armed conflict between the Amazonian Restoration Fighters and the La Republique's colonial military is in its 7th year now.
Well, the southern Cameroon's Amazonian population has complained for decades of unfair treatment by the La Republic to Cameroon dominated states. Periods of opposition and resistance have come and gone. For instance, in the 1990s, the AAC 1 and AAC 2, the SCNC, up to the consortiums, but the current levels of violence and atrocities from the occupier forces are unprecedented, and the impact on the civilian population has been devastating. A number of factors currently sustain the conflict and the peacemaking and making peace difficult. And the foremost obstacle is the annexationist colonial La Republic to Cameroon barbaric genocidal government's desire to crush their Ambazonian freedom fighters and achieve a military victory, which for 7 years has failed.
While government forces are better equipped and more numerous, this is a guerrilla war fought in difficult terrain. Such wars are difficult to win, and this is especially so when fighting mobile armed Amazonian restoration forces fueled by decades of grievances. The grievances relate to policies of forceful political, social, and cultural assimilation, economic deprivation, and absolute marginalization. Additionally, a war economy has developed. Military personnel, political leaders, and some Amazonian groups like Choayaba's ADF and the Colonial Yaoundé government militias, commonly referred to as the Atanga Boys, are all profiting from the conflict and will not want to end the war soon.
Well, militarily, there is a proliferation of armed groups, especially those on the payroll of the junta in Yaoundé, which makes any ceasefire prospects more difficult, and the Yaoundé crime syndicate is afraid to confront the most solidified Ambazonian People's Interim Government under the dreaded and no-nonsense leadership of President Samuel Ikome Sako. While atrocities against civilians are undoubtedly committed by both warring sides, the military in particular continues to exercise extreme violence against the civilian population. Arbitrary arrests, extrajudicial killings, and detentions are rampant, their modus operandi.
All this had led to a palpable shift in the mood amongst local civilians, with war weariness and a strong desire for conflict resolution. At home front, unanimous desire is expressed for an end to the war through a political settlement, even though Yaoundé continues its intransigence and divide and rule tactics in order to keep exploiting the resources of the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. Never again generation under the incorruptible, focused and time-proven leader Dr. Sacco is bent on total independence, come rain come shine, to liberate the people through war drafts that are already paying off by putting failed La Republique on its knees. Across Africa, France is losing grounds. According to reports, France services no longer needed and wanted in Africa. We've seen the revolution in Mali, Burkina Faso, now Niger are cutting ties. It is alleged that France is threatening to deport their nationals. Where will this lead to? We wonder. Evidently, the future for France in Africa is shaky. We are following very closely and will bring you updates subsequently. Well, today our focus will be the evacuation for the EU's nationals and France citizens commence in coup hit Niger. Following the coup in Niger, France's foreign ministry has said plans to evacuate French citizens are underway in Niger. Days after President Mohamed Bazoum was overthrown by members of his presidential guard. Considering the situation in Niamey, the violence against our embassy the day before yesterday, and the fact that the airspace is shut and our citizens cannot leave by their own means, France is preparing the evacuation of its citizens and other European citizens who want to leave the country. This was said by the Foreign Ministry in a statement. The evacuation is set to start today.
Well, according to the ministry's website, there were fewer than 1,200 French nationals in Niger in 2022, but French media, including the paper Le Monde, said Around 600 were in the country right now, as many families children were on holiday. The Foreign Ministry declined to give a precise figure but mentioned several hundreds. Italy's Foreign Ministry also said on Tuesday that the government would arrange special flights to repatriate nationals from Niger following the coup. The Italian government has decided to offer fellow citizens in Niamey the chance to leave the city on a special flight to Italy. Foreign Minister Antonio Tajini posted on messaging platform formerly known as Twitter.
Now, the July 26th removal of Bazoum, the seventh military takeover in less than 3 years in West and Central Africa, has sent shockwaves across the region. While the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has imposed sanctions on Niger and threatened the possible use of force if Bazoum is not reinstated within a week. The military government of Burkina Faso and Mali have said any external military aggression in Niger would be considered an act of war against them.
Well, on Sunday, supporters of the coup burned French flags and attacked their French embassies in Niger's capital. Afterwards, French President Emmanuel Macron said any attacks on French interests in Niger would be met with a swift and uncompromising response. French nuclear fuels company Orano said its activities were continuing in Niger and would not be affected by the evacuations, as 99% of staff were Nigerian nationals.
Well, France has had troops in the region for a decade helping to fight armed groups, but some locals say they want the former colonial ruler to stop intervening in their affairs. Landlocked Niger has had a turbulent political history since gaining independence in 1960. Before Wednesday, there had been four coups and numerous other attempts, including two previously against Bazoum, which brings our memory back to this video from a couple days ago. Where, let's have this video.
Of recent, I have seen the ECOWAS introducing the anti-coup d'etat unit. We are not in support of coup d'etat, but I have a concern. Before setting up a unit or anti-coup d'etat unit, isn't it time that the African head of states or the ECOWAS head of states look into the reason why there are coup d'etats? What are the root causes of coup d'etats? Let them put their house in order first before they set up an anti-coup d'etat unit. Let them put their house in order. And I believe their house is not in order. This unit is set up to defend them and to protect them only, nobody else. What is more coup d'etat than your national constitution gives you 2-term limit, 5 years, 2 terms. After serving 10 years, you want to change the constitution for another term. Is that not a coup d'etat? Because you feel you have the powers to do that. The soldiers have the powers to coup d'etat. That is also another coup d'etat. And they are living with them there. They are there. In the name of civilian, putting on mufti clothes, calling yourself a Democrat, when you loot all the resources of your country, mislead people, torture them, imprison them, burn their businesses to us, and you call that a democracy? Or a civilian rule and an illegally elected government? The leaders must stop lying to their electorate first. They must stop the corruption. They must stop looting our resources. They must understand that they are not a better citizen than anybody. They are given a responsibility, a role to play to help develop the countries and make sure that there is peace and tranquility and respect the constitution of the country. So before you create a unit to go against any attempt of coup d'etat, put your house in order. Stop lying to your electorate. Stop lying to your citizens. Stop looting the resources of your country. Stop corruption in your country.
And moving on the foreign scene, a Russian official has explained the circumstances in which Moscow would withdraw the tactical nuclear weapons it has deployed to Belarus. In an interview with state news agency, Alexei Polishuk from the Russian Foreign Ministry repeated Kremlin's rhetoric that the weapons had been sent to Belarusian territory in response to the actions of the West.
Now, the specter of nuclear weapons has hung over Vladimir Putin's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Although the US has said there is no immediate indication the Kremlin plans to use such arms. Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko, a Putin ally, boasted in June about how territory in his country was hosting weapons that would be housed in a storage facility built by Moscow, which has said it would retain control of the missiles.
Word Palushuk told the Russian state news agency that the deployment of the weapon was in response to the long-term destabilizing nuclear policy of NATO and Washington and the fundamental changes that have recently taken place in key areas of the European security. This first containment measure is designed to ensure the security of the Union state, which, as you know, has a common defense base. He said the Union state is an economic and defense union between Minsk and Moscow.
He said that the hypothetical withdrawal of Russian tactical nuclear weapons from Belarus would only be possible if the United States and NATO abandon their destructive course of purposefully undermining the security of Russia and Belarus. This implies the complete withdrawal of all US nuclear weapons to US territory and the elimination of the corresponding infrastructure in Europe. This also was added by Polishuk, director of the Foreign Ministry's Department of CIS ex-Soviet countries.
And in the world of sports, let's see what's happening in the Women's World Cup. Gab Ellison, over to you.
Latest world sports. Football. FIFA Women's World Cup 2023. Defending champions, the USA suffered a huge scare against Women's World Cup debutants Portugal before scraping through to the last 16. The Stars and Stripes are yet to fire at the tournament, and after being held by the Netherlands in their previous match, suffered another frustrating draw that raised questions about their hopes of winning the tournament for an unprecedented third time in a row. Portugal, who would have caused one of the greatest upsets in the competition's history had they won, hit the post through Ana Capeta in the 91st minute. In the end, the USA were relieved to hear the full-time whistle, the point enough to take them through as runners-up to the Netherlands, who thrashed Vietnam 7-0. However, the United States were once again far from their best as they struggled to break down a gritty Portugal defense. Keeper Ines Pereira produced two fine saves to deny record forward Lynn Williams. The world's number one side will now face the winners of Group G, which will be decided on Wednesday with Sweden, the last nation to defeat the USA in a 90-minute game at the World Cup, set to finish top unless there is a 10-goal swing. On a bitterly frustrating night for the four-time world champions in Auckland, midfielder Rose Laville was booked and will miss the next game after her second caution of the tournament. The Netherlands topped Group E of the Women's World Cup ahead of the United States as they secured an emphatic 7-0 victory over Vietnam. SB Brocht scored two sublime, near-identical calling efforts either side of the break. Jill Roord also netted twice with Lake Martens, Katja Snoys, and Danielle van die Donk, the other Dutch scorers. The 2019 runners-up will be in action against the runners-up from Group G in the first last 16 on Sunday. Brazil legend Mater tears up when discussing her legacy. Brazil legend Mater was moved to tears in a news conference before what could be her 23rd and final Women's World Cup match. Brazil must beat Jamaica to guarantee they avoid elimination from Group F. The 37-year-old was visibly emotional when asked about her legacy in the game, having already confirmed this will be her final World Cup. People stop me. Parents say to me, "My daughter adores you. She wants to be just like you," she said. Since Marta's first World Cup in 2003, women's football has grown massively in terms of media coverage and support, something far removed from her own childhood, battling poverty and sexism to get opportunities in the game. "You know what's good? When I started, there were no idols in women's football," she said. "How could there be if you didn't show women's football? How could I understand that I would reach the national team and become a reference point? 20 years ago, nobody knew who Mata was at my first World Cup. 20 years later, we have become a reference for many women over the world, not only in football. We see many women journalists here today, and we didn't see that before, so we have opened the doors of equality. I hope I answered your question after you made me cry. Mata is the all-time leading goal scorer in World Cups, men's or women's, and if she adds to her tally of 17, she will be the first footballer in history to score at 6 World Cups. She has come off the bench in Brazil's first 2 games in Australia, the opening 4-0 win over Panama, then the 2-1 loss to France in Brisbane. It means Brazil sit third in Group F and will be eliminated if they do not beat Jamaica, who they trail by a point. Unless France suffer a shock loss to Panama, we are going to do our best, keep and confident, Mater said at Melbourne Rectangular Stadium. Tomorrow is the decider, and we don't want to go home. Brazil have never won the Women's World Cup, coming closest in 2007 when featuring Mater. They reached the final but lost 2-0 to Germany. Tennis. Russia-Ukraine conflict. Fans warned Elina Svitolina and Victoria Azarenka will not shake hands at DC Open. Spectators at the DC Open were warned that Ukraine's Elina Svitolina would not shake hands with Victoria Azarenka. During the Russia-Ukraine conflict, Svitolina has refused to shake hands with opponents from Russia or Belarus. Belarusian Azarenka was booed after Svitolina beat her at Wimbledon, and to avoid a repeat, the scoreboard showed a message during Svitolina's 7-6, 7-2, 6-4 first-round win in Washington, D.C. "It's the right thing," said world number 27 Svitolina. "I asked for the WTA, Women's Tennis Association, to respect the decision of Ukrainians, and they did." At the end of the match, both players headed straight to the sidelines and the umpire. Two-time Australian Open champion Azarenka, playing on her 34th birthday, said the warning to fans had arrived 18 months too late and asked whether it was a big story. "We just move on. We'll play a tennis match. As I said in Wimbledon, I accept, respect somebody's position. That's it," she added. Both players had failed to clinch the first set on their own serve before Wimbledon semi-finalist Svitolina won it in a tie-break. The message was shown after the first set, and there was just one hold of serve in the second as 28-year-old Svitolina sealed victory over the world number 19. Gab Ellison reporting from Undaunted, ABC Amba News.
All right, thank you so much, Gab Ellison. We wait to see more results tomorrow. All right, and that was it for tonight's Undaunted, bringing to the news on church stories. All right, but before we go, let's give you the highlights of today's news.
On Undaunted tonight, we brought to you the Ambazonian War of Liberation, women protesting high cost of living caused by Ambazonian War of Independence. We brought to you the living together between farmers and grazier, which has become an impossible task as a man got butchered in an attempt to send away cows from his farm by a Bororo headsman. Insecurity looms the air in Ambazonia. The corpse of an unidentified man shot by unknown gunmen lies at the PMI hospital, My 4 in Queen.
Right tonight on Undaunted, we give you the story of the ugly side of the war in Ambazonia and the suffering the population is subjected to. Also, on the African scene, we talked about the evacuation for EU nationals and France citizens comments in cool heat Niger. And on the foreign scene, we told you that Russia's tactical team makes nuclear ultimatum to the US. We looked at the FIFA Women's World Cup 2023 from sports. All right, and that was it for tonight's Undaunted. On behalf of Sir Smart and the entire Undaunted crew, we say thank you for tuning in.
We leave you with ABC Amber TV images. Good night and God bless you.